Hello, welcome to KPFA's Local Station Board Election Candidate Debate number 2. We are here with Shirah Dedman, Craig Dunkerley, and Daniel Borgstrom. And just to start off, I'll have you each present yourselves. You have 1 minute.
Great. Hi, I'm Shirah Dedman. No. I'm a journalist. I am a member of a film collective, a social justice film collective based in Oakland. I'm an attorney, but for work. Shh, don't tell me. And I'm a housing advocate through the Alameda County Bar Association. And last, I'm an associate with the Equal Justice Initiative. And I work with them around educating communities about lynching, the history of lynching. And my background is I am a media professional. I've worked at DirecTV, I've worked at Paramount Pictures, and that's the experience. It's a wide range of experience, especially in the media world, that I bring to the table.
Thank you. Craig Dunkerley?
My name is Craig Dunkerley, and I'm part of a coalition of candidates known as, we call ourselves United for Independent Radio. And our overarching goal is to set aside our differences, work collaboratively, and make sure that Pacifica survives as a network and thrives. And we need to be sure that they're on stable financial ground, but while still preserving our core mission of speaking truth to power. Personally, I've been a facilitator on the KPFA Community Advisory Board for the last few years. I've also helped the current LSB with some parliamentary procedure. I've had many years of experience and training in mediation and conflict resolution, which hopefully I won't need, but maybe it will come in handy. I also have a background in financial planning. And being from San Jose, kind of an underserved area of the KPFA audience, I hope I can bring a useful perspective from the South Bay. Most of my activism has been with California Clean Money Campaign, and our focus is on getting money out of politics.
Thank you. Daniel Borgstrom?
Yes. First, thank you for having me on the panel here. And my name is Daniel Borgstrom, and I'm part of a group, Rescue Pacifica. And I had an experience when I was about 18 years old, exactly 18, that set me on the road for being here. I joined the Marine Corps, spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. At one point, it looked like I'd be sent to Cuba. That was during the Bay of Pigs event. It didn't happen, thank God. We had a courageous president who said no and got the first nail in his coffin for doing that. Okay, people often ask me, why did you join the Marine Corps? Because where I grew up, along Puget Sound, there was no KPFA, no Pacifica affiliate, and I feel that these are very important. Therefore, Pacifica as a nationwide organization is very necessary to keep together. Now, another thing that really concerns me here is programming. The LSB has often, or generally, avoided programming issues. I feel that we should, that the LSB should involve itself. Also, there's finance. Okay,
Thank you. You'll have more time.
Okay.
Don't need to cut you off. I'll just briefly explain the format, and then we'll get into the questions. So basically, we're going to pick from this list of debate topics that represent historical issues, as well as those fielded from listener members and also the candidates themselves. And I will assign a random question to you first, and you'll have a minute to address it, and then you each will have a minute to follow up, and then you'll, again, be able to readdress the question with another minute.
I already passed.
You already passed?
Pass. Oh, I can't do that yet? Oh, darn it. All right. I guess we'll get to it. It's fine.
So I generated the sequence, so you can see this is a randomly generated sequence, and we have you at question number 15. Oh, wait, no, actually, we did that one. Question number 10. Okay. Right. Question number 10, how can we make KPFA thrive financially? Think about diversifying funding, moving away from relying primarily on fund drives, propose alternative fundraising ideas and models, think about strategy and timeline for the implementation of your alternatives. You have 1 minute to start.
Wow. It's funny because I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think if you go to my on the candidate website, I have a whole statement written out about this. So I don't remember anything I put for some reason. It might be the camera in my face, but that's okay. So I'm going to try to get to answering this. I think that, first of all, there is an untapped fund called the public broadcasting funding that I guess KPFA has not been getting, and it's about, what is it, like $1 million a year or something like that? So, I mean, $1 million a year. Do I really have to go beyond that in terms of fundraising to say that that's like base funding that we should be getting? So I would start with doing whatever it takes to get that funding, back into the coffers of KPFA, and then in terms of further diversifying funding, I think that KPFA has been doing a really good job with events. I'm going to move on. I apologize. My time is up.
Okay, I'm sure you'll get more time.
I'll come back to that.
I think one of the first things we should, it's useful to keep in mind is that KPFA is the strongest link in the Pacifica Network chain. We pay our bills, we're solvent, we have money in the bank, and we're actually the principal financial supporter for the Pacific Network. So to all of our listeners, KPFA is strong and we're doing well. We can always do better. I think it's probably, at the risk of stating the obvious, quality programming is what's really going to drive increasing our listener base and thereby increasing our listener membership, which at the moment is one of our principal sources of funding. It is the main source of funding. At a recent meeting we had of our candidate coalition, I also suggested an idea called having an ambassador program, where an ambassador would be somebody from KPFA with communication skills who would reach out to former listener members of KPFA who have lapsed, and encourage them to re-up. So just one idea.
Thank you. Daniel?
Okay. Well, I certainly agree we should be going after that $1 million a year, which we haven't, for reasons I won't go into that. Another thing is we got to show them programs that they want to see. And last summer, there was one very popular program taken off the air, and listeners came down and complained about that and were ignored. I mean, ignored. And it wasn't just one program. It was, there was a Guns and Butter, there was also another program, then right after it, another one, Counterspin, disappeared. We didn't, and who knows what's next. But these were popular programs. We have to show them programs that they want to see. We have to, well, maybe I should just kind of leave it there.
Thank you. You can address the question again, Shirah.
Okay, first of all, I love the ambassador program idea. That's amazing. I definitely...
It's low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit, re-engaging is what's up. I mean, not only just engaging people now, but going back and making sure that they feel like they're a part of community, because I believe that's like the strength of KPFA is the community. And so I believe that any time that there's been programming issues, the listenership has not gone ignored. So, and maybe there are better ways and more inclusive ways to engage listeners that can, that KPFA can continue to work on, which I would definitely be interested in as an advisory board member. But it doesn't mean that KPFA listeners are ever ignored because of the value of KPFA, that KPFA has in its listenership and its members and creating that community. So, thanks.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next question, which will go to Craig, and that is number 8. Okay, this actually is a good follow-up. What can be done to increase listenership among KPFA's and Pacifica's audience? How will you ensure KPFA continues to grow and change in order to meet the ever-changing needs of the community? Think about strategies for identifying and engaging underserved communities. You have 1 minute.
Okay. The main thing I think that is going to help us here is for community engagement. We need more professional analysis of our audience and what they want, what they're looking for. I've served on the Community Advisory Board now for a few years, and we do our best to collect feedback from our audience with an annual survey. We also visit a variety of different events locally and look to get feedback there. Wherever we can get feedback is great, but it's kind of amateur hour. We really need, I think, more sophisticated ways of analyzing our audience. And fortunately, our new executive director, Maxie Jackson, has some really good ideas about how we can do that. So I'm excited to see what he has in mind.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah. Well, I would actually say that the CAB, and you're on it, has been doing a good job. One big, huge problem. Management does not listen. Management, the GM, comes there, misses many LSB programs. He's supposed to, LSB meetings, he's supposed to be at every one. He misses many of them. I have never seen the program director. Maybe he's been to some, maybe he hasn't. I don't know. For all the good work you've been doing, the CAB has been doing, you might as well have been talking off into thin air. Nobody was listening. I think for one thing, we need a program council. We used to have one, and it got terminated. My view of why, the short answer is, it interfered with management. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirah?
So, in terms of increasing listenership, I really think that just staying on top of, I think what everybody's trying to get to here is how do we listen to what listeners want? And yeah, there was a big uproar when Guns and Butters was taken off. So how are we looking for, I guess, better ways of listening to audiences? And I guess where I'm trying to get to is that I feel like social media is underserved right now, or underutilized. And by that I mean so many places have communities on social media so that you can literally listen to the comments being made, whether it's, KPFA has a closed group for KPFA members discussing what kind of program they like, what they don't like. And so really you can go directly to and have these directly to your listener and have these forums available and be tapped in that I think really can be done better, and it's quite possible at a cheap rates.
Thank you.
Cheap's always good.
I know, I'm so cost conscious.
Cheap's always good. And we got to be cost conscious around here. Few things. One, coming from the South Bay, San Jose, one of the underserved communities, I think, for KPFA. There's a lot of untapped potential there. So I think in terms of increasing listenership, we could reach out to groups in that area, especially groups that, for example, are working on climate disruption, which disproportionately tends to affect the poor and minorities, or police violence against people of color, immigration issues, LGBTQ issues, organizations, women's organizations. Those are all groups that we can reach out to get feedback from. We can also, we currently have a really good program reaching out to UC Berkeley and Berkeley City College. To those we could add Laney College in Oakland, San Francisco City College, to reach more young people, and San Jose City College. I'm a little partial to the South Bay because I'd like to see us take more advantage of all the potential audience down there.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next question, and this one goes to Daniel. So this is number 3. Okay. Describe your proposals to improve the governance structure. For example, how would you change the bylaws, the election process, the size and composition of local station boards, and the Pacifica National Board? You have 1 minute.
Okay, let me just say something about the election system. It's the way we run it, the way the station, not we, the other part of we, the station runs it. It runs it almost like a secret conspiracy. I doubt that many listeners even know that there's an election going, and that's because it's not properly announced. Now, I listen in the morning, for example, at the end of the Democracy Now! Show. I don't hear any of those carts. You know, we made 1-minute recordings. We all did that. I have not heard one of them. I hear music. They fill the place with music. That's one example. Another thing that we need to do is during fund drives, we don't just ask for money. We also say, and when you donate $25 or more, you become a member, a voting member of our listener democracy, because KPFA is a democracy, a listener-owned listener democracy. We have to hammer that home. We don't just say it once, we say it 1,000 times. We got to tell those listeners that they are part of this. And I think that we would increase and strengthen our listener democracy by doing that.
Thank you. Shirah?
In terms of improving the governance structure, I think that, Pacifica has so many board members. And I work in a film collective. I've help run productions. And I could tell you that personally, I like things lean because you just get more done. And so at a time, like a critical time right now, I think that running leaner is so much important in terms of getting real work done. So I would like to see Pacifica trimmed down.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you. Craig?
Forgive me for consulting my notes, but I wanted to try and make sure this would be as useful to our audience as possible. A couple of things. Our coalition has proposed an amendment to the bylaws that would make the representation on the Pacifica National Board more proportional. KPFA kind of gets short shrift because we have the largest listening audience. As I mentioned earlier, we are the strongest link in the Pacifica network, but we only get the same 4 directors as the other 4 stations get that have much smaller audiences. So if we made the representation on the national board a little more proportional to where the bulk of our listenership is, I think that would be more fair. Our coalition has also suggested a bylaw revision that would make the LSB itself a little smaller, because I agree with Shirah that that old joke about a camel is a horse designed by a committee. I think smaller a lot of times is better. Less is more.
Thank you. Daniel, you can...
Yes. I've thought about that. I've often heard people say that we work better with a smaller board, and in some situations, I could see that. But I don't think size is the key thing. Remember, the U.S. Congress has about 400, 500 people in there, and they all work beautifully together. One of them says, "Let's spend more money on the military," and they all, yay, let's more money to the military. They make horrible decisions, yes, but they do get along. Or, now if you look back at the Athenian democracy, back in ancient Greece, you had thousands of people out there speaking, and in a gathering, making decisions. And that
No
worked.
mics.
Yeah, no mic. I don't know how they did that.
I don't either.
But they did it, and it worked.
Thank you. All right. So
With that.
With that, so we'll start a second round of questions here. Let's see, that was number 3.
Let me drink a little bit of water.
Drink a little bit of water.
I'll get ready.
You got anything stronger?
Let's see. This next question is number 12. Okay. How do you suggest, and this goes to you, Shirah, how do you suggest that KPFA evaluate programs and make decisions to change, add, remove programs? Do you think that this process can be improved, and in what way? Who should decide which programs be taken off or put on the air?
So right now, that's the directors, the executive director, program director. I get my directors. It's called management.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I got off of
There you
work.
go.
Hold with me here. So it's been a long day.
Bear with me.
But it's management's job, and I think the whole point of the board is how do we make sure that we have the right management in place, and then support management to do their job. And so, if we believe in management, then we should be backing their decisions. And especially if they're listening to our listenership, and I think that's what we're talking about. It's how can we be plugged into our listenership more? Because ultimately, that is what matters. That's what's going to keep us honest in terms of our programming.
All right.
Thank you. Craig?
Yeah, I take what Daniel was saying earlier to heart. There are programming decisions that are made from time to time that are not very popular, and it's a difficult job that management has trying to decide which programs to keep and which ones not. One of the things that the Pacifica bylaws provides that the LSB should do, because our function, as with a lot of other things, is limited, but one of our functions, according to the bylaws, is to make sure that, as best we can, to work with management to make sure that decisions like that are made, according to the bylaws, fair, collaborative, and respectful manner. I would go one step further and say that one of the key things that I think would help is that whenever that process is going on, that it be transparent. It would be very helpful to me as a listener and or a member of the LSB if the guidelines for what our programming's, what guidelines we're striving to meet, what guidelines perhaps are not getting met, what the review process is, what management is supposed to do in order to work with the host and make a decision about that. So more transparency, I think, would help.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yes, definitely more transparency. And I remember that thing last summer where one program was kicked off the air, and the manager was the guy who decided it, and he has never given us a clear-cut answer on why, on what happened. And I remember a whole bunch of, there were 2 sessions where a lot of people showed up. The first one, about 60 people showed up, and a lot of them spoke, and it turned out the manager was on vacation. The second time, about, 19 or 20 people spoke, and what happened then, the general manager said, okay, let's just go into a closed session and discuss this. Well, that's not transparent. And again, I want to say again and again and again, program council. I just want to keep hammering the table. Program council, program council, program council.
Thank you. Shirah?
I'd be really happy to hear later on what you think would go into a program council. Who gets to be on this program council? Is it inclusive? I don't know. I definitely want to hear more about that. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. I believe that the management gave a press release, if we're talking about the same thing. And so you keep stating, and again, it's not really to call you out, but just kind of, I'm curious about why we keep saying that management didn't address this, but from my belief, management did address this. So, but I do like your idea about transparency. I mean, that's really good. And I think that, again, I mean, I'm a broken record that if we are going back to directly engaging our listenership through social media or through meetings or whatever. But I like social media better because it's more containable and it can be have more guidelines. I think I'm done. Sorry.
All right.
I saw the red beeping. I was like,
saw
I
the red
respect the red beeping. This works.
Could I, after an hour afterwards, respond to what this part of what she said?
Yeah, you can respond right now.
Okay, you said, yes, he did give a press release. It was about 3 or 4 lines long, very brief. And he started out by saying he had an avalanche of complaints against that program. Interesting. Okay, so when all those people showed up at the next meeting, I only saw an avalanche of about 3 or possibly 4 people who spoke out against that program, and all the rest were speaking for it. I would like to ask him, and this is transparency, I'm not saying that avalanche did not exist. I would like to say, who were the avalanche?
Okay, but I mean, don't you believe that KPFA has like standards to uphold and like journalistic standards? So even if there's an avalanche of people on one side saying keep it, but if it doesn't meet the journalistic standards that KPFA must uphold, then he has to do his job?
I think that we're operating in a different form of journalism, or should be operating in a different form of journalism than what the general corporate media and their standards.
Agreed. That's why we got rid of it. We agreed wholeheartedly. But we're supposed to be debating, so go back.
Do I have 1 more minute
Sorry.
in the sequence?
Yeah,
we got ourselves.
See, we messed up. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Renee,
That's okay.
you were on top of it. You were on top of it. Look at that.
So
That's
I
amazing.
kind of piggybacking on what both of you have said. There was a manager message. It was a taped message, like a cart, and also a written message that was posted on the website. But it didn't get enough airplay, and it didn't get enough attention. Not enough attention was directed to it. So this is part of what where I think more transparency would help. Where whatever that decision was, that whatever the manager's response is, we should have that be as readily available, to the public as possible. Because I think a lot of our listeners are mad at KPFA, or much more mad at KPFA management than they might be if they heard the whole story. The other thing is that the LSB, one of our obligations in the bylaws, is to review things like that with management. We sent a team, I wasn't on the LSB at the time, but a team was sent to the manager to talk about this, what procedures were followed, what was done, how did this decision come about. And the LSB's conclusion was that, yes, there was an extensive process that was followed, and the decision management made was kind of a last-ditch thing.
Could I ask you one thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep it brief.
Darren, you're getting timed.
Traditionally, the LSB has just often withdrawn from programming stuff. And we've been talking a lot about programming questions and decisions, and I'm just really glad to hear that. And I want to point out, maybe you already said it, but there is a thing in the bylaws. I think you read it, didn't you?
Yeah.
That that the LSB is supposed to work together. I brought it back here too, and I'm glad you did.
We can put it as a note below the...
Daniel, I think you have the heart of a programmer. I hear it in all of your questions and your responses, I should say.
A sticker on your forehead
you're
that
like,
says program council.
That's your calling, I think. It's there.
Thank you. Thank you both.
So let's see, I lost track. So
Sorry.
wait, you just answered this one,
think,
right? You
yes,
were the
I
main
think
person?
I had the main person. I think that was
And
my
so
second
now-
question.
Okay, so now we're going to give a main question to Daniel, and this is number 13. What suggestions do you have for the further development of KPFA social media, Area 94.1 podcast library, and the KPFA video channel? You have 1 minute.
Okay, First, I have a horrible thing to disclose. I'm on Facebook, but I rarely look at it.
That's
so
to
I
your
can't-
credit.
So I can't say too much about Facebook, but I think we should do podcasting. There's a lot of opportunities for that, and some young people have told me, hey, podcasting's where it's at these days. So I definitely think we need to go into that.
Thank you. Shirah?
Okay, I need you to repeat the question.
Oh, sure. Yeah. What
am I allowed to
suggestions
ask
do you
that?
have for further development of KPFA social media, Area 94.1 podcast library, and the KPFA video channel?
Okay. Well, I definitely think that this is where KPFA can shine in terms of bringing in diverse voices and marginalized voices. Podcasting is especially, I think, hot, among not just younger people. Everybody's always saying, "Oh, younger people," but just it's cutting edge. It's in terms of topics that it's dealing with and again, marginalized voices. So I think bringing in more of those voices under the KPFA umbrella would be awesome. In terms of Facebook, social media, I think KPFA, if you look at other local radio stations, when they become the hub of not just what they're doing, but local news, that there ends up being a lot of engagement. And so I think that KPFA could increase engagement on the Facebook page if they included more local news. And I really think that what performs well, shoot, I'm running out of time. Okay. I'll wait till it circles back to me.
Till it circles.
Yeah.
Craig?
I'll mention again that our role on the LSB is only advisory. I hate to keep falling back on that, but I think it is important for our viewers to realize that the LSB has a function and it's important, but there are limitations on what we can do. That said, the coalition of candidates that I'm on, United for Independent Radio, we do support increasing our postings on Facebook about KPFA programs. We also think it would be good to look to other areas of the community and solicit, search for, and create quality podcasts, exactly what Shirah was saying. And then lastly, we can work with local filmmakers, community media organizations, film departments at Bay Area colleges, and again, extending our outreach to city colleges like Laney, like San Francisco City College, like San Jose City College, to reach our younger and recruit younger folks, but also working with their film departments and so on. We can also introduce them to a lot of our apprenticeship and internship programs at KPFA. Another way to bring them in and get them excited and get them connected to KPFA.
Thank you. Daniel, the same
Yeah,
question
let
from
me
the
say
back.
I like what you both were saying.
Cool. Can I take some of your time then?
Yeah, go ahead.
See how I usurp that? Okay. But anyway, I was just going to say that KPFA, if you go on their Facebook site, a lot of engagement happens around postings about the author events. So having more of those events, I would say it's some of the best local stations are really known because they embed themselves in the community. And the more that KPFA can do that on just a large level, like Davey D being at Oakland Museum Friday nights, and they were like, oh, cool, and then, that ties you back to I have to listen to him on KPFA. So the more we can do that, it will all address what you've just talked about.
And the podcast will allow people to do that whenever it's convenient for them. They don't necessarily have to be available when DVD's on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, thank you. Each of you had each already 2 questions, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Yeah, we got excited here.
So I think to close, we can do 2 rounds of basically minute-long statements just to cover, this is what we did in the first debate, and to cover whatever issue you thought you couldn't get to in these questions. We can start.
I pass.
You pass? We can start with Craig.
I'm still reading my notes.
We can to start with Craig and rotate back since you just
Cool,
you
thanks.
did just
I
start.
appreciate it.
Okay. I had in my notes 3 kind of overarching things that I'd like to see the LSB do and the KPFA family do going forward. One of the key things we need to do is we need to work collaboratively. We need to get along. We need to be selfless. The LSB is going to do and make a lot of decisions that I'm probably not going to agree with. But as long as we all keep our eyes on the prize, making KPFA stronger, getting us more connected to the community, increasing our listening audience, serving that function that the founder had when he established KPFA, that's really the important thing. So working collaboratively, and that's a big challenge. I mean, human beings don't always get along. But I think if we keep coming back to that, it's like, calm down, Craig. We got to work collaboratively here. We got to do the best we can. And then I'll save the rest for my other minute.
Thank you.
Well, to sum it up, I'm Daniel Borgstrom. I guess that name went out under my...
It's good to be here, yeah.
Oh, good. And as I said again, being in the Marine Corps, that was a big thing in my life. It took me a long time to figure that out, which I feel is why anti-war programming is very important. Programming about veterans. I'm a member of Veterans for Peace. They endorsed me. And, oh yes, I want to say that I'm part of the group Rescue Pacifica. We are definitely for keeping all of Pacifica together. There's such a thing as an economy of scale. Even though there's huge problems in Pacifica, we all know that. But we still have to fight to keep this together. And to be a nationwide anti-war network, and I don't mean just anti-war, there's also labor issues, there's racial issues, there's zillions of issues, homelessness. Basically, the whole capitalist system is pretty getting worse. And also, let me say I'm a socialist.
Good for you.
That's great.
Good for you.
Shirah?
So one thing I'm really interested in doing is the idea of revisiting the mission statement and making sure that the mission statement reflects the true inclusion that KPFA is about. And also that what I really liked about this panel, by the way, and I'm really happy to have been on it, thank you guys, I appreciate it, is that we didn't focus on the past because that's not what it's about the future. And making sure that KPFA lasts through the future. And so I think that finding common ground, kind of like what we are doing here, it would be easy to get involved in the nitty-gritties of where we don't agree, but we need to focus on where we do and how we can push forward, because ultimately we need KPFA to survive. These are really serious times, and that's where we need to meet and find out more information at unitedforindependentradio.org.
You still have another.
.com, that's right.
.com.
Oh, I do?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, after.
unitedforindependentradio.com. Boom, I ran out of time.
So the working collaboratively, I think, is going to be one of the key things that we're going to need to do going forward. A friend of mine had, probably everybody heard this expression, KPFA is a diamond in the rough, but a diamond sure enough.
Oh, that's
It's a jewel, it's something that, it's a treasure, nationwide. It's something that's been around for 70 years. This year will be our 70th anniversary. And there'll be lots of celebratory events around that. I think going forward, we've come a long way, and it's amazing that we've survived this long and done this well. I think now one of the things we need to do going forward is not be afraid to consult professionals. We've done pretty good, more or less on our own, but I think we're at a stage now where if we're really going to take it to the next level, we need to not be afraid to consult professionals and listen to what they say.
Thank you. Daniel?
I thought I did.
You have another minute. You have another minute.
Oh, I have another minute.
But you can pass.
Well, again, I want to say from this group, Rescue Pacifica. which, as I think the name implies, we want to do what we can to rescue Pacifica from the horrible mess and keep it together and be a nationwide progressive network.
Force for good.
Yes.
Thank you. And I think you have the last minute.
Pass. I wasn't ready for it. I was like, that was the end to me. Anyway. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, Renee, for hosting
yes,
us.
thank you.
You're awesome. You did
My
such a
pleasure.
good job.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
No, this is fun. Thank you very much. Please find more information on elections.pacifica.org and please vote. The election closes March 5th. So, and contact me and I'll put some contact information here. And I was here with Shirah Dedman, Craig Dunkerley, and Daniel Borgstrom. Thank you.